Hello and welcome to the Metacast podcast, the best podcast ever. The podcast where we discuss how things are going in our company and chat about various things. I'm your host, Ilya Bezdilev, and with me is my co-host, Arnab Deka. Today, we are going to talk about software that we use in our company. I mean, we are a software company, we build software. But surprise, we also use software to build software. It's like this inception thing that we are in.
It's all software all the way down.
That's why it's called Metacast.
Yeah.
We have a podcast about the podcasting company and we use software to build software. So yeah, how more meta can it get? Well, I guess we got to get meta verified and then we will be like fully meta.
You're not fully meta yet. Okay. So what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about software that we use. We already talked about subscriptions that we use and we pay for, which was, I think, a pretty interesting episode.
That was episode like 31 or 32?
32 was Corey Quinn. It must have been 31. Yeah, and over the last few weeks, we've accumulated a lot of scars from using Google products.
Now that we are corporate Google workers, Google Workspace users, yes. And Ilya has started developing. You're doing more and more of the actual development work and you're seeing more and more of it. So yeah.
Yeah, we've been kind of punting this episode because we were like, we are going to experience more bugs from Google. So let's do it later. So now I think we're at this point where I don't think anything Google does can surprise us at this point. Well, sort of.
Yeah. Depends. As we talk through the episode, we'll find out where we stand. But I think it's not all doom and gloom. We would not have been able to build and get it to the hands of our beta customers in this short duration without Google.
I mean, absolutely. I wouldn't be able to send the whitelisting email. Our infrastructure wouldn't run. And also our users wouldn't have Android phones without Google. Yeah, Google is a great company. It's just... there are some dark corners there.
Yeah, and it's gigantic, so there's some like seams that don't work with each other. Anyway, we'll get into all that through this episode. Yeah.
So first, let's start with the things that we are improving this episode. And I know you don't have any because you didn't prepare.
Oh, I just added one, remember?
Well, maybe because you didn't prepare. So that's the thing, prepare better for the episode. Yes. No, I'm just semi-kidding here. But the topic I wanted to bring up in terms of improvements, I've been thinking about positioning. I think we talked about that a little bit last time.
Like X coordinate and Y coordinate?
No, the playhead position in audio.
Okay.
This is getting too inside jokey, too meta right now.
Yeah.
Because we were working on some playhead position in the app today. Well, I was working, and Arnab was helping me. So I think last time I mentioned that people are thinking we are building a podcasting like studio kind of thing. We are building a podcast.
We had a discussion about this between you and me like last week or something, yeah.
We have it on a recording too. I think it was in the last episode.
Oh, we did? Okay. Yeah, everything is very meta in my head, so yeah.
So, but the other thing I was thinking about is, so one thing is just communicating the message very clearly. Like, we are the founders of Metacast, a Delaware C Corp, building a startup whose product is a podcast app that people can use to listen to podcasts. Obviously, this is not the marketing pitch, but this is factual statement of what we're working on. Podcast is our marketing channel.
Right. This podcast is our marketing channel.
Exactly, yes. And in this podcast, we talk about how we built the company. So we need to make it very clear. Mostly not on the podcast, but on our social media channels. And I've been actually using that line at the end of my LinkedIn posts, saying that we are building a podcast app company. And follow me for more stuff.
By the way, when we say marketing channel, it sounds very salesy in a negative way. I want to rephrase this is more like our community channel, right? It's a one-way audio community channel where, I mean, right now, the only people who listen to are like our supporters, fans, people who really are interested in seeing what we're doing, how it's getting built and all that. And So it's our one-way audio channel to those people.
I actually like that because marketing implies that we drive awareness. But I feel like it's going to be the other way around with this podcast. Our users will discover the podcast through the app, and this will be a user radio. That's actually a pretty cool positioning for this. But the positioning I was going to talk about today is I've been watching a lot of expert reels on Instagram.
Expert reels.
Expert reels, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure it's common in the US as well, but back home in Russia, anybody who has sizable audience, sizable meaning at least a few thousand people, they sell stuff. And there are a lot of people selling courses and selling some services. I mean, I can get it when people get a hairdresser sells themselves as a hairdresser, right? People come to them because of their social media. It's all great. But there are lots and lots and lots of people now who have learned how to create reels that drive followers and subscriptions and all that. And then they create courses about creating reels. And then those reels are about creating reels so that they can sell more of their courses. I've been watching a lot of those because they have a lot of useful content, useful information for me.
This is perfect. Can I just tell you about an incident? I just read about it yesterday. So this is almost exactly what you're talking about. I was on Reddit, and I think it was the startups or entrepreneur subreddit. And there was a post, very bold post, right? Saying anybody can, if they put their mind into it, anybody can get to 100,000 users within a month. And so this person posted saying that anybody can do this. And this is my day one. I'm going to post every day on Reddit saying how I'm going to get to 100,000 users a month, right?
Through that freaking subreddit. That's how they're doing this. Am I right?
It was very meta, but almost all the comments were exactly that, right? After 30 days, you'll come back and say, this is how to get 100,000 users as a course and post it here.
Oh, but here's an interesting thing there. So doing this in public, like he's doing, or they are doing, this person, right? They're using this Reddit thing as also a marketing channel. It's a self-reinforcing thing that they're doing.
Well, I don't know about self-reinforcing. I think that might be the attempt, but Reddit users are not the right, it's not like Instagram, right? Most of the comments in that thread are I won't say dismissive, but they're very cynical. And they're seeing through it that you're not going to get to 100,000 users in a month by posting every day on Reddit. You're going to get to it some other way. But ultimately, what I think, not me, the commenters, this is the sentiment of the commenters I'm aggregating into my own voice. What I think is that after 30 days, you're going to come back and sell some sort of an info product showing how to grow to 100,000 users in a month. And that itself might be the end goal rather than actually growing some product or anything like that, because there was no mention of what product or what they're working on.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, so the positioning I was thinking about is all of those experts that I'm looking at, they have those setups where they have lots of great lighting and they have kind of a Shure SM7B microphone in front of them and they talk really well. Sometimes when they talk averagely, still, the setup looks really, really good. And I was thinking about how much does that affect the perception, not by people who watch them regularly, because then they can appear in any attire and you will still perceive them.
Like us right now.
Yeah, like us right now. Yeah, I'm in my pajamas right now, no pants.
Me too. Green ones.
Okay, but for people who discover them accidentally, let's say Instagram recommends it, or on YouTube Shorts, you just look at somebody. How much more likely would you not swipe away somebody who is, let's say, looking like me, right? Or looking like you, just a t-shirt in the house, right? Absolutely nothing special in terms of the setup. Versus somebody who is sitting at the desk with their microphone and as if they're talking to somebody else, like a podcast host, and there are other people in the background watching them, like a TED Talk kind of setup. It automatically, at least in my head, it's okay, so this person has something to say.
It's a psychological trick, yeah.
All of that stuff can be staged. And I start to think, should we be more professional? in how we do our podcast.
I'm going to do a hard no here. Because it just doesn't suit my personality.
So it's a hard no because I don't like it because I said so.
No. I know that this is the game you have to play nowadays, especially if you want to grow engagement from like random users who are seeing you for like 30 seconds, right? And you need to get those 30 seconds, 15 seconds of not even fame, 15 seconds of Instagram and make it into a follower. These are the kind of gimmicks that you have to do. Maybe I'm very old school in this way. I personally don't do things like I barely ever go search for things in Instagram or follow people speaking in Instagram. Most of my Instagram and every other social media usage is more like nature, hikes, tennis, things like that maybe. I just don't understand the mentality, first of all. And second, I don't think I could do that. So it's not like I don't want to do it, it's rather I can't do that.
So Arnab, how would you feel if we did an experiment? Just hypothetically, right? I'm just trying to get you transferred to that mindset. So let's say next week we are going to a studio. I mean, each of us goes to a studio and we have to wear a formal shirt and a tie. Just imagine yourself doing this. How would it make you feel?
Okay, so before I get to the podcast, you already know this, and I think you and I are very similar in this. Maybe that's why you brought it up. But my first job, I had to wear a tie every day.
It was a company that ends with sucks.
Yes, we won't name the company. It was a huge company.
It was something to do with money, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I had to wear a tie every day. That was the first 2.5 years of my professional work. And I was like, I'm never doing anything where I'm forced to wear a tie again. So for a podcast, no. I don't know. Maybe it might be too naive, but I don't believe in this sort of engagement and follower kind of mentality. I would rather grow 10 connections a year, but they're actually deep connections who care about you, who know you and all that, rather than 100,000 people who follow you on Instagram only for the type of things that you produce in Instagram.
For content.
For that content. For that specific type of content.
The reason why I'm saying content is because it's not even information. It's content. It's like a special kind of information.
It's not just the information. Sometimes there is no information, right? but it's the presentation and the setup and all that. Yes, it's very engaging, I would say. Yeah. But the moment you stop doing that, for whatever reason, you may decide I've had enough, right? I don't want to keep doing this. You lose all those. They're not really connections. I think the word follower itself is they're not following you. Anyway, so that was my long-winded answer to not wearing a tie.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I think you're very similar. So I was,
Yeah, I think I can bring you a couple of topics right now. Because a few minutes ago I said back home in Russia and it just felt weird. And I'll get to why in a moment. And also, I think a few episodes ago, we were saying how I was about to record from a car. Actually, which didn't happen because we rescheduled and all. But I was ready to do that. And we'll get to that in a second. And also, I think in episode 6 or 8, when we talked to Annie and Angela from Hearts in Taiwan.
8 or 10, yeah.
I told them I don't feel very American and all that.
So now you feel do you?
Now I am very American.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that time when I had to record from the car, I was going for an interview, for USCIS interview, for the immigration interview, where they asked me about a bunch of questions like who is my US representative and a few other kind of third grade level kind of questions. And they tested my English skills and all that.
This was your citizenship, US citizenship test, yes.
I passed it, yes, A+.
With flying blue, red, and white colors?
Yes. And then the week afterwards, I had my ceremony, and it was a very good ceremony. But I had to dress up for that freaking ceremony. Well, actually, I bought a shirt and formal pants because I didn't have any for the last 10 years. Last time I wore pants and a shirt when I was interviewing for an MBA program back in the spring of 2013. And then when I got my admission letter, I'm like, screw this, I'm going to throw this all out. And because we're also moving internationally to the US, I threw all of my formal attire out because like you, I was working for another company that ends with Express. And
Also a big global brand, yes.
very big global brand, yeah. And I hated wearing not just ties, but actually shorts I don't mind as much. What I do hate is pants. I find pants uncomfortable and unbeautiful. Not that I'm very stylish.
I don't wear pants or formal shoes. I don't have any.
Yeah, but luckily I had formal shoes still that I bought in Germany. They were some kind of like a 200 euro shoes that's supposed to last you all of your life. You can get like buried in those shoes if you like don't lose them because they're just such good quality because they're just German made. And, I didn't want to throw them away because they were so expensive. So luckily I didn't have to buy the shoes. Yeah. And, I went for that, the interview and the ceremony because it's one of those things where you should not anti-position yourself and, come out like as a slob because then they may have more questions for you.
You should post the picture of yourself that you showed me that day in the show notes.
Oh, maybe the certificate with the flag.
Yeah, like you were like clean shaven, haircut and everything. You look like a different person altogether. Yeah, wearing a shirt and pants.
No, look like a normal person.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. So wearing pants then made me feel like actually not as bad as I expected.
Mm. But you still prefer pajamas.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I mean, when going out, I prefer shorts. I have like these soft shorts that are almost like pajama shorts. But I didn't feel as bad. I'm like, yeah, this is just part of the game. When in Rome, do as Romans do. So 10 years ago, I was a little bit more absolutist in my attire tastes. But I really like the shorts, by the way. So the short actually really felt good. So yeah, I might buy a short just for some, I guess semi-casual occasions. So yeah, if you want to congratulate me with becoming a US citizen, you can leave a 5-star review. And subscribe to our newsletter.
Yeah, or reply to the newsletter. Yeah, all of that. Send Ilya a message. Yeah, congrats. That's a huge step. Many, many, many years in coming. Awesome.
Yeah, 10 years in this country. But yeah, what was interesting is as I exited the ceremony, the immigration building, I was driving back home and it felt different. Part of that was the ceremony was so different from border control experience that you get as an immigrant, where they look at you like, who are you? And when they get a green card, they get more polite. It becomes normal. But when you're on a visa, it's like a different experience. But there, they were like, you're one of us. And then they had this video of Biden playing, which, as cheesy as it sounds, almost made me tear up. But it was a very good video. And also, there were lots of people there, like with families and like lots of supporters. Next to me, there was a guy. He was probably 60 years old. I forgot where he was from, somewhere in Latin America, Venezuela or something. This guy, he looked like he was waiting for this for like 30 years or something.
Usually that's how long it takes. So.
Yeah, maybe, depending on the country of origin, right? So yeah, but he was like singing the anthem and he was dancing. It was incredible. He was so happy. When I was going in, I was a bit cynical about this whole thing. I'm like, yeah, just give me the paper. But in there, I got really, really, I wouldn't say I got really emotional. I got a bit emotional, much more than I expected.
It's a big step, so that's totally normal to feel overwhelmed and a bit emotional in that. Well, now you feel very American. Between episode 8 or 10 and episode 35, you've now become American.
I think when we did the episode 8 is probably when I just applied for it. It actually took just 6 months, not that long, yeah. Cool, let's move on next to our entree.
You were talking about positioning. We never finished that thread. So, briefly, I guess, do your takeaway from...
Oh, no, I was just wondering how much it might have helped, or might help, if we do some unnatural things to ourselves.
Again, I think it might help, but I don't know, it's the kind of thing that I could honestly do it. How about you? What do you think?
I think it depends on whether I can still preserve my natural voice and tone. But I think there are little positioning things that I found that work quite nicely. So for example, when I write something, sometimes in the first sentence or two, I would mention that I worked at Google and Amazon. And then that, it gives credibility, it gives authority. And then I also stopped using things like I think, or in my opinion, or at least I try to use them less of, because then it helps you speak more assertively, right? Even though in a conversation one-on-one, you would actually prefer to say those things because it makes you more humble. But when you broadcast...
You think it makes you more humble?
It just makes you seem weak. That's what you're saying?
No, I just said I think it makes you feel more humble.
It makes other people perceive me as more humble. I know this is a fact.
Yes.
Oh, I should say, it makes other people perceive you as a more humble person, and you should do it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think, but those things are very organic, right? Maybe we will someday get to that kind of place, making these small changes little by little. But what I don't want to do is completely do something for the sake of getting Instagram views and follows. Like you said, like sitting in a studio, making it look like there are people who are listening to us, like in a TED Talk. That's a lie. That's not a small positioning part.
And the clap track.
Yes. Yeah. I won't be able to do that. But making small changes here and there, maybe someday you do get to a position where people are sitting there and are listening to you and cheering and all that. And then you post that? Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Cool.
26 minutes in, warming up.
In our episode about software.
You feel warmed up yet?
I don't know what temperature is right now in my room, but it is incredibly hot without AC.
Talking about temperatures, what was the temperature that day when you were going to sit in a car and record 1 hour long podcast episode?
It was not too bad because it was pretty early. Actually, no, it was around noon. But they had a shaded parking lot.
Underground, yeah. But you didn't know that. When you said, okay, I'm going to record from the car, you didn't know that.
I didn't know that now.
That would have been quite an experience, I think.
I would have had to keep the engine running. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to use the AC.
Right, yeah. Well, anyway, glad we didn't have to do that. Thanks for Corey for rescheduling to the next day, yeah. All right, let's get on to the entree.
So I'm just looking at our notes, and we wrote them up like 6 weeks ago, I think. And I'm trying to see how we segue into this. So in our episode 26, we had Jason Fried, and his co-founder, DHH, David Hanimar Hansen, created Ruby on Rails. And the thing we have written here in the notes is culture of putting things on Rails up front. That's a segue. I don't know if it worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like a junction in a railway track.
Where like some other train comes from the side and like hits you, it derails you.
Yeah. Now we are on a different train.
Yeah, anyway, yeah, I think it's a train wreck. So very early on, we had nothing. We just had a document where we wrote up what we want to work on. Like in broad strokes, some things kind of more detailed, but it was just nothing, just a bunch of characters typed in a document, right?
We didn't have a mock-up this is like very, very vague. Like we want to do something where the podcast is not just the audio. Some at that level, yeah.
We might have had something drawn in like a notepad, which we didn't use in the doc. Basically, what I'm saying is like there was nothing that actually creates the software. There was no code, there was no folder with files, there was just absolutely nothing. Not even mocks, like you said, no mocks on computer. And as we started setting things up, I think one of the first questions came up was like, do we use CI/CD for this? And these are the Rails that I'm referring to. Are we going to just do it like the college kids in the basement way and just like whatever, not use version control, not use CI/CD because they probably don't even know what it is, just hack the thing up, deploy directly to production, have users 3 weeks in, and then see it all burn in flames in 6 weeks, and then like redo the whole thing, only to redo it again later on. And I think we made the decision to invest pragmatically into tools up front.
And I was going to add that word pragmatic there because we did do a lot of the things you said there, but we also didn't do a lot of things, yes.
Yeah, I mean, compared to, let's say, what Amazon does or Google does for their systems, we are like at maybe...
Nowhere, yeah.
We're probably at 30%. I mean, I wouldn't say we're nowhere. Actually, tell us what we have.
Do you want to talk about this from like the Rails perspective, and I'm not saying Ruby on Rails, like the guardrails perspective, or from like what do we use, what do we have?
Yeah, I feel like more like what are the processes that we've instituted to help us be more effective, even though it costs us time upfront and also some money on an ongoing basis. But it really helps us be more effective, I guess. What are the tools and processes, and what are the tools that we are using to achieve those?
Yeah, I think the only meaty one in terms of like automation and all that we have set up is the CI/CD for the app. Everything else, like you said, we're almost doing what college kids would do. Right? We are, like you said, we are coding it up. I mean, sometimes we do a little bit of back and forth between you and me. Is this the right way to do about it? And especially if it's like a complex feature, I do brainstorm with you, you brainstorm with me, right? But other than that, we do it, we merge it, and then we push it, and then it's in production. Like, we are doing a lot of those things. But I think the CI/CD part, this is where being pragmatic comes in, right? And what I really like about working right now is pretty much all of the time that we have that we're working on the actual product is working on the product. It's not working on the infrastructure or building it or deploying it or monitoring, like, is Google review done? Is Apple review done? Okay, move it to the next step and all that. So those are the things we have automated.
And what tools do we use? Because there are plenty of tools for, let's say, cloud deployments. But for mobile, I would hazard to guess it's a black box for many people. Like, what tools do we have for that?
I think at some point we should actually bring on the founders of the thing that we're using. But let's do a brief intro, yeah. So we use Flutter to build the app. Flutter is a cross-platform app development framework that is by Google. Thank you, Google. Don't kill this, please. For our backend, we use Firebase, which is also, it's acquired by Google, but right now it's run by Google, right? It's almost like a part of Google Cloud Platform, and it's very well integrated with Google Cloud. So we use Firebase and some parts of Google Cloud. Please don't kill this again.
The very well part we can discuss later. There were some zombie things there. Are you okay?
Yes, yeah. But we love these things. And then once we build the app, typically what you would have to do to get an app into the end user's device is you have to build it with like Xcode or something like that, sign it, then probably the Apple has some ways of like uploading the build artifacts into App Store. And then you monitor App Store, push through like, these are the steps, and here you go, build, deploy it, add it to this user group and all that. Same thing, pretty much the same thing on the Google Play Store side too.
Do you have to like upload a file to the
like
developer console? So you build it first. I mean, like if you do it like a college kid in the basement, right? So you build it in your computer, and then you upload the file, and then you have to babysit it in the Google Play and Apple developer console.
Yes, and you move it step by step. Like, for example, right now we have two sets of users for our app. You can think about this if you're familiar with like software systems, then rollout wise, it's like stages.
We have super pooper users and just users.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the pooper users are internal users, which is just you and me right now.
Because we get the crappiest versions.
Yeah. As soon as the build is done, we get it on our devices. Actually, I don't, but that's a different story. You do. I get it on Android. I don't get it on Apple, thanks to some weirdness in Apple. But anyway.
It's a rotten apple.
Yeah. Yeah, with a bite gone out of it. Anyway. The next step is a closed testers group that we have set up, right? And right now, how many testers do we have, Ilya?
About 15-ish, yeah. I just allowed listed 5 more a couple of hours ago. And actually want to talk about that too. Like how tedious and automation worthy that experience was.
And now you have automated.
I'm not doing it manually again. Like next time I'll automate it before I do it.
Right. And I think this is where it's a really good point about pragmatic, right? We do things manually as much as, like, we're not going to spend 3 days setting up some amazing automation unless it really pays off, right? Within, let's say, a month or something like that. And you know that it's costing time to not do this. So I think what we are optimizing for is like, we have only 2 people. We need to optimize our time so that we're actually working on the product and not the infrastructure and all that. And that's kind of why maybe today we'll also talk about why did we choose Firebase, why not AWS, all of those things. But yeah, you were asking about the automation machinery.
Because it goes beyond time here. Because the frustration you experience during wait times and just like sitting idle or like getting blocked, I think it also drains energy. And then let's say if you were like 100% energy and then you actually spent very little time doing something, but it was annoying. Now you're at like 70% energy. If you think about energy is probably more of an exponential scale. You get a lot less done when you're at 70% compared to when you're at 100%.
Yeah. And it's distraction, which is kind of like the other side of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So we use a thing called Tramline. That's it's also a startup. A few of my friends set it up maybe a year ago or something. They're doing pretty well now. They have started getting paying customers and all that.
Including us.
Yeah, we pay them.
We shouldn't disclose this.
We should not disclose what we pay them, because they're going through the process of figuring out their pricing and all that.
We are paying an advantageous early access rate.
Yes. And Tramline is basically you write your code, you merge it into your GitHub, whatever branch, like we have it on the main branch. Then it picks it up from there, builds it. So we use something called Bitrise to actually build the app. Because you can only build an iOS app on Apple hardware. You can't build it on Linux or something like that. So Bitrise has some almost on-demand kind of machinery available that Tramline is the orchestrator, right? Tramline figures out that, there's a new code sitting on GitHub and you want to make a release or whatever. It triggers Bitrise to go do the build using Apple hardware for the iOS build and Linux for the Android one. It basically uses Flutter commands and all that to build the app, sign it and all that. And then Tramline uploads it to App Store and Google Play. And then basically whatever you would do, all those manual steps, it automates all that. The only manual step that you and I have is we do have a manual approval. And this is the pragmatic part I was trying to come to, is we haven't written integration tests or anything. And people who know me would kind of like not believe that. But yeah, there are no automatic tests. Apart from like there is one whether the app boots or not.
Yeah, it's very bootstrapped.
So yeah, that's the machinery that we're using. So yeah, Flutter, Firebase, and then for CI/CD, Bitrise, and all this Tramline. Yeah.
So once you merge a pull request, the next night Tramline just picks it up and makes a release. And in the morning, we see a new version on our phone because TestFlight automatically updates it.
Yeah, because we are internal users group, right? So as soon as the build is done, it deploys it to the internal users group, yours and my phones right now. My Android, your iOS. Yeah, and then that is the only approval step we have, is to test it for a little bit. And then we say, okay, this is ready to go. Send it to the beta testers.
Yeah, and they get it pretty much right away. Well, not right away, maybe within an hour or so.
So Google Play, the first review of the app, the very first review, it took about 8 days. 8 days. But since then, it feels very automated because as soon as we send it for approval, within about 30 minutes, it gets approved and then gets deployed. Apple, there's more about human things. Like there is a mix of automation and human in the loop because some builds, I don't know what they do, but on some builds, they determine that this needs more time or maybe a human to verify or whatever. And so it takes time, sometimes up to a day. But sometimes it gets like approved in 30 minutes or 40 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, and we have a sign-in with Google. So basically, we don't allow any unauthenticated usage of the app at this point. If you use the app as a beta tester, you have to be signed in, and we use Google Sign-in is the only option available right now. So and what happens?
So this was surprising. Every time we send the app for review, there's like 4 or 5 new users who sign in, and they seem to just sign in. They don't do much in the app, right?
I thought it was like 400 or 500 users, no?
No. Right now we're up to about, I think, 70 or so. But every time you do a release, there's like 5 to 10-ish new users who pop in. And we were really puzzled, like, who are these people? How are they finding it? Because it's not listed anywhere on App Store or Google Play on the public one. The only way to get it is if we invite you in.
Even then, we add people to that group. So if people are not in the group, they should not be able to install the app.
Right. So the only thing we were kind of hypothesizing is this must be Google testing it or something. And we couldn't find any documentation, and I was freaking out a little bit about it. So I posted on Reddit and all that, and people said the same thing, like, yeah, it's most likely Google testing it.
Snooping on our app so they can improve YouTube music.
Yeah. Yeah. YouTube music for podcasts. Yeah, but the email addresses have a pattern, right? It's like first name dot last name and some 4 or 5 digits or something like that. So it's like ryan.severs12456@gmail.com. And we were not able to figure, and it's not documented. It's kind of bizarre that this is like Google doing it, and I hope it's Google doing it because...
But man, our daily actives were growing.
We just have to keep making releases.
Actually, that's an interesting point about vanity metrics, right? So let's say in our case, if all we tracked was just how many people sign in, daily active users, people who sign into the app at least once, what we would get is at every release, we would get 5 new sign-ins. And our daily actives, well, actually not daily actives, like new users. And that would be like a total vanity metric here. It would just keep growing. And like you said, the more releases we make, the more it grows. So you basically incentivize an absolutely inappropriate behavior to game the metric that makes no sense. The other thing that we've set up early on, which made us feel very professional, is we've set up a project in GitHub. Very early on, we started using Notion to track our stuff and track some of the tasks, but I never liked Notion for one simple reason of how it manages text editing.
Blocky text editor.
It's in blocks, yeah. You can select multiple bullet points. Like for me, if you can select multiple bullet points, you're out of my software deck. I cannot use software like that. Yeah, we needed to move somewhere else, so we moved all of our docs to Google Docs and Google Sheets. Luckily, no slides yet. And we created a GitHub project where we started to accumulate tasks. And we actually were really deliberate about how we set this up. And I think actually what we've set up is pretty good. I think it's working quite well for us. So what we've done is, obviously we have the repos for
the app and the backend.
For the app and the backend, yeah, where all the code lives. But some of our features, actually most of our features, they require work in both the app and the backend, but they may also need design. So we can't put them in one of those repos. They will just get lost there. So what we've done instead, we created a meta repo.
As you know, we love the word meta at this point.
yeah, despite Meta LLC or Meta Inc., whatever they are, Meta Systems, I think. Anyway, so we have a meta repo which has a project associated with it, which looks like a Kanban board, which has super basic fields like, columns, to do, in progress, I think InDesign, test, I think blocked or something, and then done.
We don't have blocked.
We don't have blocked? Yeah, okay, good.
We're never blocked because it's you and me.
Right. But you can get blocked by third parties. Let's start with the G. Yeah, and basically we create a bunch of issues in that project, which get created in the meta repo, and that has been working surprisingly well for us. The experience looks very much like what I'm used to at Amazon, but a lot simpler, and I think same for you.
It's lightweight, and I think we're also keeping a balance on adding enough details into these tasks, but not like too much details at the same time.
Yeah, we basically just use checklists to add, like, these are the few things that we need to do to make sure that this feature is done, right? And as we create those features, we would paste screenshots, we would paste some links to things that helped us troubleshoot issues. You would sometimes post a lot more when you have to like debug stuff, but it will help us later on if we have to deal with the same problem again. But also for me, especially the screenshots, is part of the memorabilia because our app will be not recognizable a year from now. And we can just go back to those GitHub issues that have a number below 200. Look at those and...
We actually had a version of the app with our internal name, and we were using an Orca for like the spinners and error pages and all that. And I kept a GIF of the app experience for posterity. Maybe we'll someday release that. It'll be fun. We'll see. But yeah, that was killer. Anyway. Anyway, so I think I have seen these task management systems go two ways. One is you don't have any or enough information in them. So each task is like the title is a line that says do X or like implement analytics or like, something like that.
It's like when your TPM forces you to use a task management system and everybody complies. So,
yeah.
and then it's unusable.
Yeah. And then like you go after a month and you have no idea what's involved in that, what it is about and all that. That's one spectrum. The other side of the spectrum I've seen is adding too much in there. And this starts actually really nicely in the beginning when you add like a lot of details in these stories. But what starts to happen is you start believing in that framework quite a lot, where you start adding nitty-gritty tasks for each and everything, even if you're never going to work on it. Like
copy pasting code there. Like this is the code I wrote for this.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about the details of the task. But so let's say we come across a bug today. Or if it's a bug, it's a different story. But you have an idea for an improvement. If you keep adding all those things into your task management system, pretty soon the task management system will start to overwhelm you with the amount of things you have there. Because every time you need to go through, you need to triage, like what do we need to do for our next release? Like what are the minimum things we need to do to get this app to the next beta?
Right. So like when you're working on 10 things, but you have like 700 tasks, you have to manage those.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is where the balance between them is critical. So far, it's only been, like 6 months or so, I guess, for us. So we'll see how it goes after a year. But so far, it's a good balance. Like, I have a grasp of the task board, like, pretty quickly.
Yeah. And with this, I'm getting the pull request. So my son requests me to pull out of this conversation and go read him a book so he can go to bed, so he can wake up tomorrow morning and go to school nice and refreshed. So, dear listeners, we will finish our discussion about the Google side of the world, and you can probably see him banging on the door.
I can hear him, yeah.
It's like a pull request where they also ping you on chat, right?
Yeah, it's like, hey, can you look at this pull request? Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent it just now, 2 minutes ago, yeah.
And then they come to you, like tap you on your shoulder. It's like, how about my pull request? All right. So I guess we'll just have to say goodbye at this point. I have forces far beyond my capacity to manage right now.
Yeah, we'll catch up next time. All right.
Bye.
Good. Yep, bye.